remarkably logical and
The
analytical
whole
mind.
notion of
Thank you.
logic.
I prefer the concrete, the graspable, the provable.
You'd make a splendid computer, Mr. Spock.
And from Axios, Trump predicts he'll be arrested Tuesday, calls for protests. Former President Trump said in Truth Social post Saturday morning he believes he'll be arrested on Tuesday amid a Manhattan District Attorney's investigation into a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump would be the first sitting or former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. The far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the U.S. of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week, he wrote, citing illegal leaks from the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Protest, take our nation back, he added. In a separate post on Saturday morning, Trump said, America is now third world and dying. He added that American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while also being critical of crime, inflation, prisons, and mental institutions. The district attorney's office invited Trump to testify before the grand jury as part of its investigation. Daniels and Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer, both met with prosecutors early this week. A Trump spokesperson said in a statement to Axios, there's been no notification other than illegal leaks from the Justice Department and the DA's office to fake news carriers that the Democrat prosecutor in Manhattan's decided to take his witch hunt to the next level. President Trump's rightfully highlighting his innocence and the weaponization of our injustice system. He'll be in Texas next weekend for a giant rally, unquote. And these are all quotes from Trump's spokesperson. And Trump's lawyer, Joseph Tacopini, told CNBC on Friday that the former president will surrender to face criminal charges should he be indicted. It will follow normal procedures if he gets to the point, Tacopina told CNBC. Trump, who has 24-hour protection from the Secret Service, is currently living at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. A grand jury in Manhattan could indict Trump for his alleged role in the hush money paid to Daniels before the 2016 presidential election. Daniels claims she's had an affair with the former president, which Trump's denied. Cohen pleaded guilty to federal campaign finance violations in 2018 and is sentenced to 3 years in prison related in part to the $130,000 paid to Daniels. Cohen later alleged that Trump directed him to make the hush money payments amid the 2016 presidential election campaign. Cohen said Trump then reimbursed him for the payment through the Trump Organization, and the company cited it as legal expenses. Legal experts have raised questions about the strength of the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's case against Trump, saying the district attorney will face several hurdles per the Washington Post. If felony charges are sought against Trump, Bragg would likely have to prove that Trump falsified business records to cover up Cohen's campaign finance violations. The big picture. The grand jury in Manhattan could turn the 2024 campaign on its head by indicting Trump. Trump would likely play the victim and vengeance card for 2024, which are already major themes of his campaign. That's speculation. Basu writes, the former president's already identified any and all investigations as witch hunts, but there's no precedent for what's about to happen, leaving the U.S. political system in uncharted waters. No precedent for what's about to happen, and it leaves the U.S. political system in uncharted waters. And here is a bit on this from the NPC show.
The confidentiality payments to Stormy Daniels, and now allied prosecutors in New York have taken this cudgel up and are abusing, as I said, their awesome power to interfere in an election. And I tell you, every Republican office holder, every wannabe Republican office holder, and frankly every honest Democrat needs to denounce this. Governor Hochul should be thinking of ways that she can, under law, to shut this down because this is so disruptive. And frankly, Joe Biden should be denouncing this as well. It undermines, obviously, people's general confidence in the fair administration of justice. And this is the sort of thing that would go on in Moscow or Beijing in terms of the targeting of regime opponents. And this makes a mockery and of on the international stage of the American justice system, and it's a national security issue in that regard. So anyone
Tom,
who cares about this republic should be on the other side of arresting a former president and the number one opponent of the current president on nonsensical charges that even the New York Times said are novel and risky.
Now, Tom, do you believe, though, that a picture of Trump in handcuffs would be like the picture of the century, though, right?
Well, that's the political. That's the political
but its impact is
nature
debatable.
Sure.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or even the idea that he has to go in even without handcuffs. There's going to be a variation of a perp walk, no matter how it's worked. I tell you, patriots, and I mean Democrats among this too, people who want our system to continue should oppose this. But unfortunately, within the Democratic Party, there's this rising anarchist communist wing.
Your inconsistencies are glaringly obvious. What is this nothing you talk about? What is this nothing you talk
They want
about?
to blow up the system, and one way to blow up the system is to basically blow up all apparent confidence that people have that a justice is at least going to be administered modestly without regard to politics. And I tell you, if this is the new rule, then I fear for the future of our country.
So it seems like it's going to be a cult. Go ahead.
Just a quick question for Tom. Tom, I agree with you to a certain point because you're making a lot of conclusions. So have you seen the indictment? Have you seen exactly what they're charging them with? Or are you just kind of making just overall conclusions whatever, since you don't, if you don't know, then you're just saying it's all garbage without seeing the documents? I would believe what you're saying, but it seems like you know exactly what they're charging. You've seen the indictment, you've seen the evidence they presented, and just said, hey, this is all BS. Is that what we're talking about?
Obviously, I'm basing it on the significant reporting in places like the New York Times and CNN, et cetera. So unless they're lying and oblivious to other charges,
that gentleman's not to be trusted?
Do I believe that there's secret charges that are actually stronger than the ones that have been talked about? No, there's no evidence of it.
So I'm going to give the mic back to Nate. Nate, I'll give you the mic back. Let me read what Maxine Waters, that's an article on MSNBC.
All the time, I know, and I apologize, but I have friends all over the world who tell me constantly, because I'm a constant communication with them, how concerned they are about what's going on in the United States. Not because they think the United States is the best country in the world. Some of them don't necessarily quite think that, but they do see the significance of what we do here. I think there is something very serious at stake with this. Whatever your misgivings about Trump are, and I don't begrudge people having misgivings about him. This is a dire time, and if this thing is allowed to move forward with force, you have entirely undermined a process of freedom that we have in this country that has held us strong up till now, and it will begin down a path of potentially causing us to fall off a cliff.
Yeah,
But let me ask. Nate and some other.
Can I ask Tom a question? I just want to ask Tom. You can carry on. I just want to ask you a question. It's based on something Mario read out. What are your thoughts about those comments where they're equating people wanting to protest to domestic terrorists?
I didn't quite understand what was the issue about what Trump was saying. And it's not because I'm making a political point there. I'm just that I don't know if I heard it describe. The point is, what did he say exactly again?
Yeah, I'll explain it, Tom. I'll explain it so you can answer. So what Trump said was he wanted people to protest against what's happening in terms of his indictment. What Mario then read out is some comments equating that to him propagating domestic terrorists. So I'm asking, is that a fair equivocation made by those comments that Mario read out?
Calling on people to protest is well within First Amendment speech. I mean, the left doesn't believe that their opponents should have the First Amendment right to protest. They just don't believe civil rights apply to their political opponents.
No, I think he says the following: protest, and then he says after it, take our nation back. Now, obviously, that could be interpreted in many ways. So, just wanted to add not only protest, but he said protest and then take our nation back, with which some people are equating to something worse than just protesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a leftist who doesn't believe that your opponents have the right to free speech, you will interpret standard political statements as something other than speech that is protected. And
Tom,
let me be clear. This president's civil rights are being attacked. He's a crime victim. This malicious prosecution is an assault on his First Amendment freedom.
What is this nothing you talk about?
14th Amendment
What is this
freedoms.
nothing you talk about?
And again, it gets to the issue of what he was talking about with his lawyer, his Sixth Amendment freedom.
What is this nothing you talk about?
They don't want him to have the sorts of protections other people have in running for office or being even president. These are
your inconsistencies are glaringly obvious.
The nature of this activity is the left denying civil rights to their political
Your inconsistencies are glaringly obvious.
Tom, is it your sense, though, that, I mean, just getting your feel for people that you're around and people you talk to, that people are ready to take to the streets over this?
Oh, I'm sure.
What do you think the reaction actually will be?
I'm sure there will be MAGA-type protests, but I just don't see mass protest. I don't see anything inappropriate happening, outside of, in the January 6th nature, which was a black swan event that was the result of lack of security that helped generate those disturbances. It wasn't something that was organic, it was planned in terms of the protests that the left suggests.
Tony, you got a comment there? Oh, wait, go ahead, Nate.
I just want to ask Tom just one question. I'm sorry, just let me ask Tom. So, Tom, just to be clear, no matter what's in that indictment, no matter what evidence presented, no matter what the charges are,
yes,
you have already concluded that it's all BS.
Let me be clear.
Right? Just to be clear.
There's no way that this hack of a prosecutor can fairly prosecute President Trump, and we should presume it's all garbage. So there's nothing he's going to do.
No matter what the evidence is, no matter what.
I'm not playing this sophistry games. The point is, we know what they're planning. We know what they suggest they're going to do, and stop pretending that there's something else out there that we have to give assign good intentions to.
Let's try and unpack that for a second. Let's try and de-emotionalize this for a second. Let's try and intellectualize this for a second. Let's try and rationalize this for a second.
In terms of this hack up in New York. This is a Democratic
Party
operation designed to take out a candidate and an opponent and punish anyone who stands up against
just to be clear, my statement was, no matter what the evidence, no matter what you see, no matter what they come out with, you are presumptively saying it's all crazy. I'm just making sure we're clear.
Your game. I'm not playing your game.
We have the evidence. No one can dispute the evidence. We heard the evidence. We saw the evidence.
There is no game. I'm saying evidence. No matter what the evidence is, you say it's false, and without even knowing what the evidence is.
We have the evidence. No one can dispute the evidence. We heard the evidence. We saw the evidence.
It's not a game. That's
so. When are you going to denounce him? What is it going to take for you to denounce him?
When I see the evidence, and if I say it's BS, I'll say that evidence is. Well, you just.
Are you going to be
just to ask me? If you ask me,
I mean, we can all do the
you ask me a question.
And how-tos. This is just garbage.
If I see the evidence, and I believe the evidence is BS and the charges are BS, I will say that. I say that all the time.
But Nate, you have to agree that this is overtly.
Attorney to be removed and prosecuted for misabuse.
Oh yeah, of course. If this case is BS and the evidence is BS, I will say that. But I'm saying you're saying that now, and you don't know what anything
Nate,
you're talking about.
Read the newspaper.
You're looking at a blank piece of paper and saying it's all BS. I'm saying I don't know if it's BS. You're saying you know.
What evidence do you have?
Your inconsistencies are glaringly obvious.
Information out there.
All right, let's just be clear. I'm saying I don't know. You're saying you know. I'm saying I don't know. Let me see the documents on Tuesday, and then I will know.
What we have before us. Which is a charge.
How do you know that? How do you know that the documents?
What?
How do you know that? You don't know.
Okay,
you don't know anything. Only thing you're talking about is what the newspapers
People
report.
can draw their own conclusions based on this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, Nate, you have
that's
to
fair.
agree that, don't you, that this is pretty overtly political, right? Don't you agree with it?
Oh no, I don't deny that at all. My pushback to Tom is that I honestly agree with Tom. I think this is political. I think the DA is playing games. I agree with
So
all
Nate,
that,
why,
right?
why do you think, Nate, I'll ask you that question. I know the point you're making, Nate. It's a good point. I want you to make it right after I ask you that question. So what makes you conclude, even yourself, to conclude this is politically motivated?
Oh, just because of the history, they're trying to get Trump on everything. Every Georgia, every place. They're always trying to get Trump because I think the Democrats are weaponizing the justice system to get Trump. I am not denying that. I see
I
that
think your argument
but,
is based on a false premise, and I'll explain why. As Mario said, let me just explain why, and then you can get a chance to respond. I think your argument's based on a false premise, and the reason for it is this. And as Mario said, I am investigating the Andrew Tate case, and we have similar issues. So look, what we have is a scenario where a lot of information, a lot of evidence has leaked to the public to try and present a reason or provide a reason of why you're trying to convict someone or prosecute someone. And what the prosecutor generally has done in these situations to demonstrate that by saying, look, we've got this evidence and this is quite strong. Now, there is a possibility, and obviously you're talking about a philosophical possibility, that yes, they may have even stronger evidence that no one knows about, no one's leaked, no one's.
You can't compare. You can't compare the Romanian political system to the US in terms of leaks.
No. It's evidence stronger, and then hence why the reaction is what it is. Now, there is a small possibility that there may be this massive evidence that no one's heard of, no one's written about, no one's thought of, that will indicate people are making these conclusions. But I accept your point that it's not certain.
Just to be clear,
go for it. Okay, so I was just gonna say, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, you got you.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I was just gonna say, so I think it's a little bit irresponsible to say that since he's indicted in New York that it's just all political. Typically, a prosecutor, a DA, they're not going to charge somebody unless they know probably 90% a 90% chance that they're going to
documents versus that.
I'm sure Tom has a few examples for you, Brian, but keep going.
So 90% of the time that they're going to win the case, especially in this case where there's so many so much possible fallout from losing the case. I mean, if Alvin Bragg indicts Trump and loses it, his career is pretty much effectively over with.
Why is that, Brian?
Let me just finish. If they lose this case, it would make Trump like a god. Like he would.
No. Look, Brian, let me ask you a question though. Isn't this very much? I mean, like a lot of people on my side, for example, are just dying to get Dr. Fauci and have him frog marched in handcuffs out of Congress. I've told them again and again that's not going to happen, and I think there actually is a bit of caution for a lot of Democrats, and this is basically just it feels like this might be just a very political play that's overplaying its hand. And it might be a great photo op for Trump that he's misjudging on what the impact is going to be on all sides. I think there's a collective shrug and eye roll across the country on both sides of the political spectrum about this. But I don't believe that the risk for the prosecutor is that this will be the guy who brought Trump on charges. Am I wrong?
So I was just going to say I think that the evidence, attacking the evidence, like I heard somebody before saying that a smart person would look at the evidence and say that they don't really see anything here. We haven't seen the evidence, but we do know that Michael Cohen admitted to crimes, pled guilty, and was sentenced to, I think it was 3 years in prison for
his tax fraud, right?
Well, it was tax fraud, but it was also campaign finance violations in regards to this payment to Stormy Daniels, which is what this is about. This is about Trump lying on business documents about the funds used to pay Stormy Daniels off.
So Brian, I got a question for you on that. I got a question for you on that. So he admitted as part of his plea agreement to campaign finance violations. They were brought up, and I think most people at the time even felt that was a bit expeditionary to call this a campaign finance violation. We've had people in here with some expertise saying that was a bit expeditionary. I mean, come on, this is a way to get to Trump. The Michael Cohen issue, I don't even think is relevant here. This is a serious issue we're talking about.
But well, so you
I think we lost you for a second, Brian. There you go. Go ahead.
That's just Ed was calling me. Let's just falsifying documents in it.
Yeah, well, you got to keep in mind on the he was going to get actually been going on here, and unless this takes us down when political, like they're applauding him for going to be percent or relate to Donald Trump, or is just the.
Let's go to Brandon real quick. Brandon's.
Hey, if they didn't feel, I think you said 80 to 90% sure they would win the case. Well, you're phrasing the case is the end of the crime. I mean, the standards are is basically, let's convict the guy. I hate him. I've been so clearly what's going on in our judicial system and the type of people who are going on these juries, who are literally champing at the bit to be able to convict Donald Trump on anything that they possibly can and get what they perceive to be some sort of revenge point that they wouldn't bring. Actually, I wanted to support your point that they wouldn't bring the case unless they were sure they had a good chance of winning. But a good chance of winning doesn't mean that he's guilty.
With you. I don't one-sided jury, but and the defense, and they work together to find a jury knowledge of judiciary.
Brian, I've got a question.
No,
I've got age, and I know you're political about Trump potentially getting handcuffed next week. He says if this happens, it will be the beginning of Trump's re-election. And then Elon says if this happens, Trump will be re-elected in a landslide victory. I want to get your thoughts on this, and I also want to get your thoughts on some people expressing their fear of significant riots by Trump's supporters. Again, I don't want anyone to be upset. I'm not I don't think this will happen, but I want to get your thoughts on whether this is a concern that you have, Brandon, before going to Kim.
Yeah, your question is specifically about riots or about whether I think
there's two questions: the landslide election and the possibility for riots.
I'm not really going to sound off on the first one because I think it's too soon to tell. I think we have to see how the story unfolds. I'll put it this way. I don't automatically believe it equals a landslide victory. I don't think it doesn't mean that. I need more information to be able to form an opinion on that. But in terms of the riots, absurd, patently absurd. The only time in 6 years, you brought up Maxine Waters, signaling to her audience that, domestic terrorists might rise up in this country. This is the sense. Anything that happened throughout 2020, try to give the impression
there is.
I told you the trash scenes are trash.
All one times.
Can I?
No, I've seen it happen several times. You did it for
the fact is, the only key conservative in this country left here also doesn't. You will be targeted.
I'm gonna crop it, Justin. I'll send it to you. It's a 5-minute clip, but it's about the response, an attorney commenting on the investigation and the response we could expect from Trump's supporters. So I'll send the clip to Justin to play in a bit. In the meantime, Kim, the mic is yours.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So the way I see this is the biggest gift the Democrats could give about it, or that the Democrats can't see because
party he push away
any significance, maybe, but we're talking about, and Trump's lawyer found guilty, sold out, and that has evidence terribly for the charge of anything
to investigate any federal involvement. And this is a crisis.
Please, so guys, everyone, hold on, everyone, please. Okay, Tom, I'm not sure. I think everyone was speaking. So I know, Justin, you want to play a clip. Before doing that, if that's okay, Brian, I'll let you quickly respond. I didn't hear Vivek stance
coming in here and didn't really.
Just quickly, this is energizes the base. You could survive this, right? I'm Justin. This constant attack by the corporate that are against who's anti. Brian.
I mean, help him within the Republican Party, but ultimately tarnish his. I mean, it's already tarnished, but tarnish it even more. His reputation within the general populace. And Democrats are going to be fired up to vote against him. Republicans, who are his base, which is about 30% of Americans, will be definitely fired up to vote for him. But he needs the independents, and I don't see him getting the independence from this. He lost by 7 million votes in 2020. I think
that's false.
Lose by a lot more.
He didn't lose by 7 million votes. That's not how we count.
Facts, they're numbers. You can quantify this.
Elections in the United States.
Fair point. So we do have Will Chamberlain from the the Internet Accountability Project, who'll be joining us on stage in the next few minutes. In the meantime, I know, Brandon, you've got your hand up. We'll go to you right after, but Brian, Sleiman and Justin, I think, Justin, you've got a clip to play for the audience before we continue discussion.
The impression of the Democrat voter. I mean, if you look at the two, here are the two options. He can either sink lower in the opinion of Democrats, or he can rise in the opinion of independents, libertarians, not have the capacity.
I think that he voted in 2024 to the polls.
Does that make you feel embarrassed about your party?
No, absolutely not. I support Biden. I think he's old, but I think he's a strong leader, and I would definitely pick him over Trump.
It doesn't make you feel embarrassed about your party that what would motivate. Wait, let me finish the question. Just let me finish the question.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
It wouldn't make you feel embarrassed about your party that what would motivate them to vote in 2024 is that Donald Trump may or may not have given money to a stripper to keep her quiet. That's what's going to send them to the polls?
It wouldn't make me be embarrassed. I think that there's a segment of the base.
You should look at that. You should look at that.
No, let me hold on, Brandon, let him respond. Let him respond. Go ahead, Brian.
I would say there's probably 5 to 10% of the Democratic base who probably are younger and who see an older candidate and might not vote for him and just stay home. And I think that the fact that a criminal, an alleged criminal who's indicted and is about to face trial is running for the other party would fire them up. I would be more embarrassed being a Republican voting for a man who's indicted and about to face trial than for a president who is older.
So Tom, I know you're just jumping
Brian
in.
Every once in a while admits his dishonest analysis of this issue. He's quite happy to have this abuse of power, and he thinks it will put Republicans.
What do you
that
prove it?
I can't. Documentary government about presidency like targeting Trump that obviously would be prosecuted in any other context, but for which Biden,
your inconsistencies
Hillary,
are glaringly obvious. What is this nothing you talk about?
And,
what is this nothing you talk about? What is this nothing you talk about?
Concern that the justice system, when it comes to how it's being run by Democrats and their civil service.
There's only one person that
was
you don't know the evidence, Tom.
Of laws that had never been previously applied in the way that they're trying. January 6th, that Putin
of either the Fulton County or the man. Yeah, my point is
Emily
you can't make that claim.
All right.
Tom.
Well, I think that's a silly comment. And again, going on here, President Trump
without using deep state.
No, nobody said deep state, but Brian
and there is a deep
Brian.
state, Brian.
So let me explain it. Already explained, right? They are now claiming that's therefore. And Michael Cohen has been after sentence. And
that's not true, though.
Let me just finish real quick. This case really is. It's his word against Trump's word. And that is a very weak case.
That's not true, though.
Let me just finish real quick because I'm not done yet.
Nate, hold on.
I'm not done.
Hold on.
Yeah. So that's a very, very weak case. When you look in comparison, right, to this case, to everything that has cropped up around the China case for Trump, we have a proxy good advice, completely stupid.
Just one correction there. Who can verify?
We know how this. Look. What we have seen is not used for just them trying to make. Only gets like needs to make against Biden.
I promise. I want you to jump in, Nate, and Brian. So I should probably mention it more often. The newsletter and your position.
Yeah, so thanks for time is correct.
We're gonna get you off speakerphone, Will.
Yeah.
Which is sick for his lawyer, but he was
on to Kim, and then we'll go right back to Will. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, just since we're talking about the news media evidence, there is a recording, and Michael Cohen, which is sick for his lawyer, but he was recording Trump, and they have recordings of him talking to Trump about these particular payments. So Michael Cohen's testimony isn't the only evidence. They have the paper trail, and they also have recordings, which I think, honestly, shouldn't be let in, because why are you recording your client? But those recordings are out.
So let me read out quickly. Senator Vance says the following. I've been asked by multiple reporters if an indictment would lead me to rescind my endorsement of Donald Trump. The answer is hell no. A politically motivated prosecution makes the argument for Trump stronger. We simply don't have a real country if justice depends on politics. We've got another person here. Not sure who that is, but I'll read it out. It's all from the Washington Examiner. This is just a continuation of the disgrace.
You're not listening to my point.
Orem Hazoni had a really good point on this, which is that in a republic or a democracy, it doesn't.
Kim, I think
Biden's
I'm not sure.
family-
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I think
Sebastian, you tweeted kind of. Yeah.
Everyone needs to say something.
What do you?
Come
in and surrender.
And let me just give you an example. Let me just give you an example because he wants to have
about this. They've looked at the history of Trump
raided, getting criminal charges pushed against them that then usually kind of go nowhere, or there's.
Beam me up, Mr.